All right, let's keep going now by taking a closer look at how we can draw some of these business processes. So just a reminder, business process is a series or a set of steps that we take to do something. So we have processes for everything from brushing our teeth in the morning to studying, to preparing materials, to ordering inventory, whatever it is, there's processes for it that we can describe. And organizations are a collection of many different processes, aren't they? And that's helpful for us. If we can articulate those, we can understand our organizations better and also how these processes work together, right? That's going to help us later on when we try to design systems to automate or replace some of these processes or to improve the processes themselves, right? Because if I can draw and articulate a business process really clearly and then sit down with a colleague together, we've got a common working platform that we can use to help us make the process better, right? So how do we diagram these things? Well, I did talk about business process modeling and the notation at the end of chapter 2, and that's a good kind of universal way of drawing them that you'll see out there. I'm going to use a slightly simplified approach, just leave out a few of the finer details to make it easier for us to learn and get right to it so that we can try it out ourselves. And we're going to draw these things in PowerPoint. All right, so you've got PowerPoint, simple, easy to use. You've probably used it lots already for presentations, but it's also not a bad drawing system, right? And so let's have a look at how that works. Now here are the shapes we're going to use, all right? And I'd like you to stick to only these shapes. So that's pretty key. These are the only shapes that we want to use, all right, for our notation. You've got a round circle that says either start or stop, or maybe begin, end. That's it. That's optional, but sometimes people like to put that in so that we know where things begin and where they end. All right. Sometimes it's obvious and you don't really need it, but that's an optional one. Then the other three are the main ones. We've got arrows for the flow of tasks. So that tells us, what step do we do next? We've got activities, right, or tasks, and those are rectangles with the name of the activity written inside. All right. So I'll show you an example here in just a minute, but those activities would be connected by arrows, wouldn't they? Because first we'll do one activity, then we'll move on, and we'll do the next activity. Right? Now, often processes aren't just a linear set of steps, but they're decision points along the way where you may branch off, and we can use a diamond for that. And that's a decision point. The text inside is always going to be a yes/no question, which means we'll have two lines coming out, one for yes and one for no. All right, so we have a question in there that's yes, no, and then we've got two arrows coming out that say yes and no on them. They shouldn't say anything else, right? So if yours look a little different than that, that's a problem, right? So we want to have a clear path in, right? So maybe we came in over here from another task, and now we make a decision, and depending on that, we head off in one of two directions. All right, so that's what we're trying to do. Those few shapes will get us a long way, right? So here's an example I put together showing the process of ordering business cards. I've done one more thing here. I've broken it into areas. Sometimes you'll see the term swim lanes used. On the top, I've got things that the employee does, and on the bottom, things that the print shop does. And I put a dotted line to separate those two zones. Another way of doing that is to use color coding. So the employee does anything that's blue, and the print shop does anything that's red. All right, so let's see how we order business cards at the college, something I do from time to time. The very first step, and you'll notice I didn't put a start circle in. I could have, and put it there. I just, to save a little space and make this nice and big, I left it out, but we could put begin there. First, I fill in a requisition form. All right. Then I send it to the print shop. See, the only option I have is to go this direction, right? I send it to the print shop. The print shop then checks it over and asks, is the form correct? There's a yes/no question. If it's not, they send it back to me, and I complete it again. If it is correct, we can carry on. We can print the cards, then we ship them to the employee, and the employee then confirms receipt. All right, so that's our basic business card ordering process here at the college. Now, in years gone by, that was pretty much manual, and I would have a paper form to fill in. But can you see that I could also automate this and have a screen that I filled in instead, so the form was an online form? Then the checking part could be automated. Instead of a person doing it, the software could now do it and automatically just say, put a red box around the field, say this field must be filled in, right? If I left my phone number off or something like that. So we can see that if we look at this process, we could maybe spot opportunities to automate as well. Right? So that's one of the uses of having business processes. I could also sit down with the people in the print shop and say, is this right? Is this what you do? And we could clarify that. Maybe there's some other things they do in there. After they print the cards before they ship them to me, maybe they have some other processes here where they do a quality check or something like that I missed out, and they might put those in. So this is a really nice and handy way for us to discuss what's going on and communicate clearly. All right, so typically when we diagram something in business, it's because we want to clarify it and communicate it well, and this is no different, right? That's what diagrams are good for, and we could improve it, right? So we could get into something called business process improvement. We'll learn more about that later in the course as well and spend time on it, and we'll use this modeling notation when we get there, but for now, let's just start with the basics and learn how to draw a basic model. All right. So you could imagine doing the same thing now, I think, for almost any process. If I asked you to document the process of registering for a course at the college, well, you could think about some of the steps you might do there. You might even head over to Cam Lake and read through their little guide on how to register, and there you've got it sort of written in text. Well, you could transform that over to a diagram, couldn't you? Right, so that's an idea. I could ask you maybe to draw a process for studying for the final exam. Well, you could talk about the steps you do there and the order you're going to do them in so that you're well prepared for a final exam. So we could think of any potential process. Now PowerPoint, said we're going to use PowerPoint, has some great built-in shapes that'll help us do that. And they're down, if you go to the Insert menu and then click on Shapes, you'll see this group here called Flowchart. And there's several shapes in there, but again, we're keeping it simple. We're only going to use the three. We're going to use the rectangle, we're going to use the arrow, and we're going to use the diamond. I guess we did have that fourth optional one as well, if you like, that you could use, the start and stop. But really for most of describing the process, it's those first three, isn't it, that we want to use. So that's where you'll find them. You click on that, you can add it in, you type, and it'll add text. And you can quickly start to draw these out and format them and connect them with the arrows and create a process diagram. That's what we'd like to do. So just to recall, we've got the arrows to show the flow of tasks. So they'll go, between tasks we'll have an arrow, or maybe even coming into a decision, and a decision has one way in and two ways out, doesn't it? The yes and the no side. There'd be a question in there, won't there? That sort of thing. So those are our shapes, right? Those are the ones we want to use. When we draw them, you can color code them. If you want to show, like I did, blue for one sort of actor in the whole thing and red for another or green for another, that's fine. You can also separate your page and put a dotted line between zones and say, oh, this is what the employee will do. This is what the manager will do, things like that. That's another way of doing it. That's helpful too, because then we can, ask those people if we've got their portion correct. So try to keep that in mind as we work on exercise 2. I've got all the details next for you in D2L on the exercise. You're going to go find an example on the internet and talk about that, and then you're going to draw one yourself. And I'd like you to use PowerPoint, use these shapes just like I did, and use the same standard, and then you'll be able to submit that by the end of the week. After we've done all that, we're going to do our final topic for the week, which is decision making, and again, how information systems can play a role in that and help us with that.